The Tigers opened the 2013 season by heading to Arlington, Texas to take on the TCU Horned Frogs in the Cowboy Classic. LSU won a school record 10 straight season openers head into the contest, and the Tigers did not disappoint in number 11. Zach Mettenberger connected on 16 of 32 passes for 251 yards, and the LSU defense limited TCU to 249 total yards as the 12th-ranked Tigers opened 2013 with a 37-27 victory over the 20th-ranked Horned Frogs. LSU never trailed in the contest as the Tigers kicked a field goal on the opening possession of the game and then recovered a TCU fumble on the ensuing kickoff. LSU tacked on another field goal for a 6-0 advantage before TCU took an offensive snap. After TCU pulled within 6-3, J.C. Copeland extended the lead to 13-3 on a 1-yard dive to cap a 7-play, 80-yard drive for the Tigers. However, TCU responded on the very next play, returning the kickoff 100 yards to cut the margin to 13-10. LSU tacked on a third first-half field goal as time expired in the second quarter for a 16-10 lead at halftime. After a Jalen Mills interception on TCU's first play of the second half, LSU's Terrence McGee raced 52 yards for a touchdown to stretch the lead to 23-10.
It's McGee down the sideline, and he's gone. Touchdown.
TCU hung around, scoring on its next possession to get back within 23-17. Another McGee TD run, this time a 3-yarder, stretched the lead to 30-17 late in the third quarter. A defensive stop by the Tigers forced TCU to punt on its next possession, pinning LSU inside its 5-yard line. A miscue on the quarterback exchange on a handoff to Alfred Blue resulted in a fumble at LSU's own 6-yard line. TCU scored 2 plays later to cut the deficit to 30-24 with 13 minutes to play. TCU kicked a field goal midway through the fourth quarter to get within 30-27. However, Odell Beckham Jr. returned the ensuing kickoff 75 yards to set up a 20-yard touchdown pass from Mettenberger to Jarvis Landry, sealing the victory for the Tigers. Defensively, LSU limited TCU to 249 yards and only 54 total plays. McGee led LSU with 95 rushing yards, while Landry caught 8 passes for 100 yards and a score. And Beckham Jr. added 5 receptions himself for 118 yards. Beckham Jr. accounted for 272 all-purpose yards, the 6th highest total in school history. In the Tigers' home opener, Mettenberger fired 5 touchdown passes as LSU rolled past UAB 56-17. Odell Beckham Jr. scored 4 touchdowns and racked up 331 all-purpose yards as LSU rolled past UAB in the home opener for the Tigers. LSU never trailed in the contest. The Tigers raced out to a 21-0 lead in the first quarter thanks to a pair of Mettenberger to Beckham touchdown passes, followed by a 1-yard run by Kenny Hilliard. LSU, which scored touchdowns on 5 straight first-half possessions, extended the advantage to 28-0 on a 3-yard run by Jeremy Hill early in the third quarter. UAB scored 17 points in the second quarter to get within 35-17 at halftime. Beckham scored his 3rd touchdown of the game on a 27-yard pass from Mettenberger to open the third quarter for the Tigers, stretching the lead to 42-17. A Mettenberger to Jarvis Landry 14-yard TD pass midway through the third quarter increased the lead to 49-17 and broke the school's single-game touchdown pass record in the process. Beckham Jr. capped the scoring for the Tigers with a school record 100-yard return of a missed 59-yard field goal by UAB to run the advantage to 56-17.
He's going to try and return this. Odell Beckham. He got the corner. He's got blockers. One man to beat. Touchdown, Odell Beckham.
The 100-yard return was the first of its kind in LSU history and pushed Beckham's all-purpose yardage to 331, the 3rd highest total in school history. For the game, LSU piled up 440 total yards, while limiting UAB to 296 total yards. Mettenberger hit on 16 of 19 passes for 282 yards and 5 scores, with Beckham Jr. and Landry being the top targets. A total of 9 players caught at least 1 pass for the Tigers. Hilliard led LSU in rushing with 54 yards on 11 carries, while Hill added 50 yards on 6 attempts. Lamine Barrow and Lamar Lewis led the LSU defense with 7 tackles apiece. In the 3rd game of the season, LSU racked up a season-high 571 total yards, including 307 on the ground, as the 8th-ranked Tigers jumped out to a 21 first-quarter lead and never trailed in a 45-13 win over Kent State in Tiger Stadium. LSU improved to 3-0 with the win and ran the nation's longest non-conference regular season winning streak to 44. LSU also ran its record to 34-0 under Miles in non-conference regular season games. LSU scored on its first 5 possessions as the Tigers built a 31-10 lead at halftime. Jeremy Hill scored on runs of 58 and 12 yards in the first quarter, while Jarvis Landry caught first-half TD passes of 21 and 31 yards from Zach Mettenberger. Kobe Delahousse added a 25-yard field goal as the Tigers built a 31-10 lead at halftime. Odell Beckham Jr. scored on a 5-yard pass from Mettenberger to open the fourth quarter, and Terrence McGee added a 12-yard TD run to cap the scoring for the Tigers. Hill led LSU with 117 rushing yards and a pair of touchdowns, while McGee had his first career 100-yard game with 108 yards and a score. Mettenberger connected on 13 of 18 passes for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. Defensively, LSU limited Kent State to 248 total yards. Ego Ferguson led the Tigers with 8 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. The Tigers opened conference playing against Auburn at Tiger Stadium September 21st. Jeremy Hill rushed for a career-high 184 yards as the number 6 Tigers raced out to a 21-0 lead and then held off a late Auburn rally for a 35-21 victory in a rain-soaked Tiger Stadium. For the 4th straight game, LSU scored first as the Tigers took a 7-0 lead on their first possession of the game when Hill raced 49 yards for a touchdown on LSU's 3rd play of the game. Auburn's punter muffed the snap on its next possession, giving LSU the ball at the Auburn 10-yard line. One play later, Hill scampered 10 yards for the score and a 14-0 LSU advantage. LSU stretched the lead to 21-0 after a 54-yard run by Hill set up a 1-yard scoring plunge by fullback J.C. Copeland early in the second quarter. The score remained that way until early third quarter when Auburn got its first points following a Zach Mettenberger interception. LSU answered the Auburn touchdown with a 7-play, 75-yard drive capped by a 6-yard run by Hill, extending the cushion back 3 touchdowns. Auburn pulled to within 28-14 on a 10-play, 94-yard drive. However, LSU answered again, this time going 81 yards on 7 plays, capped by a Mettenberger 32-yard TD pass to Jarvis Landry to extend the margin to 35-14. Auburn scored midway through the 4th quarter to pull within 35-21. However, LSU's defense came up with an interception and then stopped Auburn on downs on its final 2 possessions to clinch the victory. For the game, LSU racked up 454 total yards. Mettenberger connected on 14 of 22 passes for 229 yards, 1 TD and 1 interception, his first of the year. Landry led the Tigers with 7 receptions for 118 yards and a score. Defensively, linebackers DJ Welter and Lamine Barrow each had 11 tackles to pace the Tigers. In its first true road game of the season, the Tigers headed to Athens, Georgia to take on the Bulldogs in a high-profile SEC matchup. Zach Mettenberger threw for a career-high 372 yards and 3 touchdowns, but LSU's last-minute chance at a comeback came up short as the 6th-ranked Tigers dropped a 44-41 road decision to the number 9 Georgia Bulldogs. In a game that featured 5 ties, 5 lead changes, and with neither team leading by more than a touchdown at any point in the contest, LSU looked in position to win the game by taking a 41-37 advantage on an 8-yard run by Jeremy Hill with just over 4 minutes remaining. Georgia responded, going 75 yards on 6 plays to regain the lead at 44-41 on a 25-yard touchdown pass with 1:47 left in the contest. After a first down, they got the Tigers on their own 35-yard line. LSU turned the ball over on downs following 4 straight incompletions, and Georgia ran out the clock for the victory. The game went back and forth from the start as Georgia scored on its first possession to take a 7-0 lead. LSU tied the game at 7-7 on its next possession, starting a seesaw battle that had the teams tied at 14-14 at the end of the first quarter. Georgia led 24-17 at halftime when they scored on a 1-yard run with 20 seconds left in the second quarter. Down 27-20 in the third quarter, Mettenberger connected with Jarvis Landry on a 39-yard pass to tie the game at 27-all late in the third quarter. Kenny Hilliard tied the contest at 34-34 on a 2-yard run early in the fourth quarter, but the Bulldogs answered with a 38-yard field goal just 4 minutes later to regain the lead at 37-34 with 8:09 to go. Mettenberger then guided LSU on a 75-yard, 8-play drive capped with Hill's 8-yard touchdown run that put the Tigers up 41-37 with 4 minutes to play. For the game, Mettenberger connected on 23 of 37 passes for 372 yards and 3 scores. Landry led LSU with 10 catches for 156 yards, while Odell Beckham Jr. had 6 receptions for 118 yards. Hill rushed for 86 yards and a touchdown for the Tigers. The 41 points marked the most by an LSU team in a loss in a regulation game in school history. Next up, the Tigers traveled to Starkville, Mississippi to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. LSU blew open a tight game at halftime by outscoring Mississippi State 31-3 in the second half on its way to a 59-26 win over the Bulldogs in Starkville. The win was the 14th straight and the 21st and 22 tries for LSU over Mississippi State. In another offensive shootout, LSU came out on top this time as the Tigers combined the passing of Zach Mettenberger along with a 100-yard rushing effort by Jeremy Hill to wear down the Bulldogs.
Downhill is Jeremy Hill. Touchdown, Tigers!
LSU scored touchdowns on its first 3 possessions, 2 coming from Kenny Hilliard to build a 21-9 advantage early in the second quarter. LSU's next 3 possessions came up empty, and Mississippi State took advantage, taking a 23-21 lead at the 6:28 mark in the second quarter on a 59-yard passing play. LSU regained the lead just before halftime at 28-23, but Mettenberger led the Tigers on a 9-play, 70-yard drive capped with a 14-yard touchdown pass to Odell Beckham Jr. LSU never trailed again as the teams exchanged field goals in the third quarter before LSU used a 28-point fourth quarter scoring outburst to put the game out of reach. Beckham Jr. started the scoring for the Tigers in the final stanza with a 33-yard touchdown reception from Mettenberger. Hill followed with a 5-yard run following an interception by Tre'Davious White to run the lead to 45-26. Alfred Blue with a 17-yard run and Hilliard with his third rushing touchdown, a 4-yard scamper, closed out the scoring for the Tigers in what was the most points for an LSU team in a league game since 1997, the most since the Tigers scored 63 versus Kentucky. For the game, LSU racked up 563 total yards, with Mettenberger passing for 340 yards and 2 scores. Hill rushed for 157 yards and a pair of touchdowns. Hilliard scored 3 times, and Beckham Jr. caught 9 passes for 179 yards and a pair of touchdowns. For their next conference matchup, the Tigers returned to Death Valley to take on the number 17 Florida Gators. LSU had its best defensive outing of the season, limiting Florida to just 240 total yards and a pair of field goals as the 10th-ranked Tigers hammered the Gators 17-6 in Tiger Stadium. LSU improved to 6-1 overall and 3-1 in league play with the victory, as the Tigers won their 6th straight and 28th of the last 29 games in Tiger Stadium. The 6 points were the fewest scored by a Florida team against LSU since a 20-3 Tiger victory in 1979. Florida struck first, taking its first possession and marching 60 yards on 14 plays to take a 3-0 lead late in the first quarter. LSU responded with a 70-yard, 9-play drive capped with a 1-yard plunge by fullback J.C. Copeland to take a 7-3 lead on the first play of the second quarter. LSU's defense forced Florida to punt on its next 5 possessions, during which time the Tigers were able to extend the lead to 14-3 on a 1-yard quarterback sneak by Anthony Jennings. The score remained 14-3 until early in the fourth quarter, when the Gators converted another field goal to pull within 14-6. LSU answered the Gators with a field goal of its own as Kobe Delahousse converted a 31-yard attempt to stretch the lead 17-6 with 7:58 to play. On its next possession, Florida drove to the LSU 20-yard line before a penalty, and back-to-back sacks, the last coming on 4th down, ended the Gators' chances at a comeback. The LSU offense took over with 3:51 to go and was able to run out the clock. For the game, Jeremy Hill led the LSU offense with 126 yards on 19 carries against a Florida defense that came into the game allowing just 65 yards on the ground a game. Zach Mettenberger completed 9 of 17 passes for 152 yards, while Jarvis Landry caught 4 passes for 58 yards. Defensively, LSU recorded season highs with 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and 5 quarterback hurries as the Tigers stymied the Florida offensive attack. Linebacker Lamine Barrow led the LSU defense with 13 tackles, while Jayla Mills, Michael Eugene, Anthony Johnson, and Kendall Beckwith all had sacks. The Tigers then traveled to Oxford, Mississippi to take on the Ole Miss Rebels in a crucial SEC West matchup. Ole Miss kicked a 41-yard field goal with 2 seconds left to lift the Rebels to a 27-24 win over number 6 LSU in Oxford, as the Tigers fell to 6-2 and 3-2 in SEC action. The field goal erased a second-half comeback for the Tigers, one that saw LSU erase a 17-0 deficit to tie the contest at 24-24 on a 4-yard TD pass from Mettenberger to Jarvis Landry with just over 3 minutes remaining. However, Ole Miss responded with its game-winning drive, going 61 yards on 14 plays to set up the deciding field goal. 3 first-half interceptions by Mettenberger put the Tigers in an early hole as the Rebels, behind the play of quarterback Bo Wallace, built a 10-0 lead at halftime. After a 3-and-out to open the second half for the Tigers, Ole Miss increased the lead to 17-0 in its next possession, going 49 yards on 9 plays. LSU pulled to within 17-7 on the ensuing possession when Kenny Hilliard scored on a 1-yard plunge. Ole Miss fumbled 3 plays later at the LSU 49-yard line to set up the Tigers' next touchdown. Jeremy Hill capped a 51-yard, 8-play drive with a 3-yard run to get LSU within 17-14. Ole Miss extended the lead to 24-14 with a touchdown on its next possession. LSU's Kobe Delahousse kicked a 41-yard field goal to bring the Tigers to within 24-17 after Ole Miss fumbled a punt on its own 13-yard line. Ole Miss had a chance to put the game away midway through the fourth quarter with a 29-yard field goal. However, LSU's Ego Ferguson blocked the kick, and LSU marched 80 yards on 11 plays to tie the game at 24-24 on Mettenberger's touchdown pass to Landry. For the game, Mettenberger connected on 19 of 33 passes for 274 yards, 1 touchdown, and a season-high 3 interceptions. Landry led the Tigers with 7 catches for 121 yards and a score. The Tigers returned to Death Valley for a homecoming matchup against Furman. The LSU offense racked up in the 3rd most yards in school history as the Tigers raced past Furman 48-16 on homecoming in Tiger Stadium. LSU amassed 672 yards of total offense, the most since the Tigers gained 680 in Nick Saban's opener against Western Carolina in 2000. With the victory, LSU improved to 7-2 overall and extended its FBS record of consecutive non-conference regular season wins to 45, dating back to 2002. Odell Beckham Jr. had a career night, finishing with 6 catches for a personal best 204 yards, along with touchdown receptions of 37 and 63 yards. Zach Mettenberger earned his 3rd 300-yard passing game of the season as he tallied 328 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 of 24 passing. An interception off a touchdown off a Mettenberger throw and a field goal off of Beckham Jr. muffed punt kept Furman in the game as LSU led 20-16 at halftime, but the Tigers blanked the Paladins 28-0 in the second half to secure the victory. The Tigers then traveled to Tuscaloosa to take on SEC heavyweight Alabama. Top-ranked Alabama scored 21 unanswered points in the second half to post a 38-17 win over number 10 LSU in Tuscaloosa. Trailing 17-14 at halftime, LSU took the second half kickoff and marched 50 yards on 6 plays to tie the game at 17-17 on a 41-yard field goal by Colby Delahousse. Alabama took advantage of a fake punt on its next possession to extend a drive that eventually led to a touchdown and a 24-17 lead. The Crimson Tide extended the lead to 31-17 early in the fourth quarter before Odell Beckham Jr. returned to kickoff 82 yards to give the Tigers a scoring opportunity inside the Alabama 20-yard line. However, the Tigers weren't able to convert as 3 straight incompletions turned the ball back over to Alabama. Crimson Tide tacked on another touchdown midway through the fourth quarter to put the game out of reach. LSU appeared to have taken control of the game early in the contest as the Tigers forced Alabama to punt on its first possession. The Tigers went 81 yards on 9 plays to take what appeared to be a 7-0 lead. However, running back J.C. Copeland fumbled the ball as he was crossing the goal line to end that drive. Alabama scored touchdowns on its next 2 possessions to take a 17-7 lead before LSU used a 10-play, 75-yard drive just before the half to get within 17-14 on a 6-yard pass from Mettenberger to Traven Durrell. For the game, Mettenberger completed 16 of 23 passes for 241 yards and a touchdown, while Jarvis Landry hauled in 5 passes for 90 yards. Hill led the Tigers with 42 rushing yards and a score. November 23rd marked Johnny Football's only appearance in Tiger Stadium. An inspired LSU defense held number 9 ranked Texas A&M to its lowest offensive output in the past 2 seasons as the Tigers controlled the clock in a dominating 34-10 victory on a wet and cool Saturday afternoon in Tiger Stadium. The Tigers forced a pair of turnovers and held the Aggies to just 299 yards of total offense on the defensive side of the ball, while the LSU offense rolled up 517 yards of total offense with 324 yards on the ground. Quarterback Zach Mettenberger led the way through the air with 193 yards and 2 touchdowns, and running back Terrence McGee set the pace on the ground with a career-high 149 yards and 1 score on 13 carries to lead the Tigers on their 3rd straight victory over the Aggies in the series. McGee accounted for all 71 yards with 5 carries on LSU's first scoring drive, capped by his 1-yard touchdown run to put the Tigers on top 7-0 with 2:51 to play in the first quarter. Mettenberger then hit wide receiver Jarvis Landry with scoring strikes of 10 and 40 yards in the second quarter to give the Tigers a 21-10 lead at halftime. LSU drove 71 yards in 13 plays to set up a 21-yard field goal by kicker Colby Delahousse for a 2-touchdown lead at 24-10 in the first drive of the second half. Delahousse added a 36-yard field goal in the fourth quarter and converted all 4 of his extra points for a perfect afternoon in the kicking game. Running back Kenny Hilliard, who rushed for 36 yards on 8 carries down the end zone from 2 yards out in the third quarter to cap the scoring in the 34-10 victory. Jeremy Hill rushed for 76 yards on 14 carries, and Alfred Blue added 61 yards on 13 carries to punctuate LSU's dominant running attack. Defensively, freshman cornerback Rashard Robinson earned his first career start and responded with his first career interception on a Johnny Manziel pass on Texas A&M's opening drive in the third quarter to set the tone for the second half. Safety Craig Lawson added his 2nd interception of the season on the Aggies' final drive, and he led the Tigers with 7 tackles. Defensive ends Daniil Hunter and Jamario Rasco each added sacks on the afternoon. The Tigers hosted the Arkansas Razorbacks in the regular season finale, while star receiver Odell Beckham Jr. and quarterback Zach Mettenberger went down with injuries as the sun set in Tiger Stadium. 2 freshmen stepped up and ushered in the next era of LSU football with a fourth quarter comeback for the ages. LSU true freshman quarterback Anthony Jennings finished an 8-play, 99-yard drive with a 49-yard touchdown pass to redshirt freshman wide receiver Traven Durrell with 75 seconds remaining.
Jennings looking for Durrell. He's wide open. Touchdown.
As number 15 LSU came from behind to defeat Arkansas 31-27. Jennings entered the contest only 2 of 3 passing for 23 yards with 11 rushes for 23 yards in 2003. Seeing his first meaningful action in his 8th game while facing a fourth quarter deficit, Jennings calmly led his team to its 9th win of the season and capped LSU's 15th undefeated home slate in Tiger Stadium history. Jennings finished the afternoon 4 of 7 passing for 76 yards while running 3 times for 26 yards. Mettenberger, who became the 3rd LSU quarterback to throw for more than 3,000 yards, was injured late in the fourth quarter as Jarvis Landry made a spectacular 32-yard catch that set up a field goal. LSU running back Jeremy Hill rushed 20 times for a game-high 145 yards, including a 52-yard touchdown, also catching 5 passes out of the backfield for 27 yards. Terrence McGee had 59 yards on 7 carries with touchdown runs of 29 and 23 yards in the first quarter. LSU's defense, which came up with a big stop after the Tigers cut the Razorback lead to 27-24 with a 37-yard field goal, secured the victory by forcing a fumble with less than a minute to play. Jeremy Hill scored twice and carried the 14th-ranked LSU football team to its school record 4th straight 10-win season as the Tigers beat Iowa on New Year's Day 21-14 in the 2014 Outback Bowl at Raymond James Stadium. LSU broke a 2-game bowl skid and improved to 23-21-1 all-time in bowl play. Hill, the game's most valuable player, ran 28 times for a career-best 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. becoming the first Tiger to total more than 200 yards rushing since Allie Broussard in 2004. In the process, he moved into second place on LSU's single-season rushing list with 1,401 yards. Hill's yardage was third most in LSU Bowl history behind Kevin Falk and Rondell Mealy, and third most in Outback Bowl history. The Tigers built a 14-0 first-half lead and never trailed, though Iowa made it interesting with a drive into the LSU red zone and a late 92-yard kickoff return in the final 5 minutes. However, LSU's defense capped a terrific performance with an interception to keep the Hawkeyes at bay. 14 of LSU's 21 points came off turnovers.